made it an ugly land. They've made it a land of graft and greed and racism and war. This is a bad time.
Dad, like any good demagogue, would conjure up fear.
Because they're not going to round us up like the Japanese. They're not going to round us up like the Indians. No, 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 no.
We felt isolated and we felt threatened here in the States. I certainly did.
And then you have Jim Jones says, do I have the place for you, for us? All we have to do is get there and build.
I've got some land over there with a black president. I'm sending my people there little by little.
We're ready to go. If you tell us we have to give our lives now, we're ready. I'm pretty sure all the rest of the brothers are with me.
We have as much of this world as they're going to get. Let's just be done with it. Let's be done with the agony of it.
In November 1978, a jungle in Guyana became a graveyard. More than 900 people were dead. Men, women, and children lay where they had once believed they would find a new life. The scene was not the result of one broken promise, but was the end of a long, deliberate collapse. This is Jonestown. This is the People's Temple. This is Jim Jones. How does devotion become a command to die? How does a preacher turn sanctuary into slaughter? To answer that, we go back, we rewind the story, we trace the path from sermon to suicide, from a community's hope to its destruction. Jim Jones began as a preacher in small towns. He preached equality. He preached a brand of radical compassion. For many who felt left behind by society, the People's Temple offered shelter and purpose. People joined. They found food, shelter, and a sense of belonging. In the 1960s, Jones moved his congregation to California. The temple grew. It became known for social programs, for helping the poor, for baptism ceremonies that welcomed those the world had rejected. Jones cultivated allies. He met politicians. He sat beside civic leaders. The image he built was powerful. A minister who cared, a leader who acted on the promises he made. Yet beneath the programs, power hardened. Jones demanded loyalty. He required confessions. He staged public humiliations. Individual dignity was traded for communal obedience.
You want to go home? Oh. Well, then be seated and shut your mouth and don't be in my face anymore.
The more he controlled, the more he framed himself as protector. Dissent became dangerous. Privacy vanished. By the mid-1970s, allegations of abuse and coercion began to mount. Families worried. Former members spoke out. The pressure drove Jones to seek a place beyond scrutiny. He negotiated with Guyanese officials and moved his followers to a remote settlement in South America. He called it a socialist sanctuary. He called it a refuge from racism and economic injustice. Jonestown was isolated. It was also tightly controlled. Work days were long and grueling. Food was scarce. Medical care was inconsistent. Jones spoke often of enemies beyond the jungle. Hostile governments, a corrupt America, and forces that would destroy them. Those warnings hardened a siege mentality. The outsiders were enemies. The temple was a fortress. The building pressure finally cracked in November 1978. US Representative Leo Ryan traveled to Guyana to investigate reports that members were being held against their will. Ryan was not a crusader. He was a lawmaker who wanted to hear people's stories.
I think that all of you know that I'm here to find out more about questions that have been raised about your operation here. Whatever.
Some residents asked to leave with him. They boarded planes. They believed rescue had arrived. At the airstrip, a band of gunmen ambushed the departing party. Congressman Ryan and 4 others were killed. The assassination was swift. It was a message. Jones returned to Jonestown and addressed his followers. He framed the violence as proof that they faced annihilation. He told them that the only honorable response was revolutionary suicide.
For God's sake, let's get on with it. We've lived as no other people have lived and loved. We've had as much of this world as you're going to get. Let's just be done with it. Let's be done with the agony of it.
What followed was organized and horrific. Containers of a powdered drink laced with cyanide and other drugs circulated through the crowd. Some took cups willingly, others fought. Children were among the dead. Witness accounts describe chaos and coercion, hands forced, cries muffled, and the slow, awful recognition of what was happening. In the days after, the world tried to make sense of the scale. The FBI and Guyanese investigators recovered documents, tapes, and fragments of a life turned violent. The myth of a progressive utopia dissolved into records of intimidation, manipulation, and calculated control. So, how did this happen? The psychology of Jonestown reveals a pattern that repeats in other tragedies of power. Jones understood belonging. He offered care and then made that care conditional. He combined ideology with fear. He used ritual and confession to erode autonomy. He isolated his community until leaving seemed impossible, and obedience felt safer than resistance. He also weaponized threat. He told his followers that the world would come to take them. Fear sharpened loyalty. When an external threat is credible, people will cling harder to leaders who promise protection. Jones amplified that threat until the only perceived escape required absolute compliance. The institutional failures that allowed Jonestown are also clear. Families raised alarms. Journalists uncovered troubling reports. Yet responses were slow. The government moved cautiously. Media sometimes celebrated the temple's outreach without fully investigating its internal controls. This is an old lesson. Prestige and public charity can hide dangerous power. Survivors returned with stories that demanded to be heard. Their testimonies painted a picture of daily coercion, of private punishments, of children forced to do what they could not understand. Their lives were forever changed. Their courage in speaking out became the basis for investigations and for a deeper public understanding of how such a community could form. Jonestown also changed the language of popular culture. The phrase, "a drinking the Kool-Aid," entered the lexicon. It became shorthand for blind obedience. That shorthand, though, trivializes suffering. Many victims were forced or incapacitated. The phrase flattens the reality of mass coercion into a joke. In the aftermath, reforms followed. Social workers and psychologists studied cult dynamics more seriously. Law enforcement and policymakers improved protocols for investigating insular groups. The tragedy prompted a renewed focus on how to protect vulnerable people from leaders who exploit faith and fear. And yet the deeper warning remains human. Charisma is not insight. Rhetoric is not evidence. A leader who demands unconditional loyalty is asking for moral surrender. When communities silence dissent, they make space for abuse. When institutions defer to reputation, they risk overlooking abuse until it is too late. Jim Jones died in Jonestown. His death ended his authority, but not the reverberations of his actions. Jonestown remains a testament to the danger of unchecked power, to the terrible capacity of persuasion, and to the vulnerability of those who yearn for belonging. So ask yourself, how would you test a leader who promises paradise? What evidence would you demand? How would you protect those who are most vulnerable to coercion? These are not abstract questions. They are the hard lessons of Jonestown. Tell us what struck you most. Was it the transformation of belief into obedience, the role of isolation and ritual, or the way institutions failed to stop it? Leave one concrete reason for your choice. The most thoughtful replies will be pinned. If this dive helped you understand Jonestown's darkness, like and subscribe. We will keep pulling the curtain back on the stories that shape our world.